Okay, so I'm going to do your first warm-up problem with you. Okay. Remember, this is just a review of what we did on Tuesday. So what we did on Tuesday was we worked on writing the slope-intercept form of the equation of the line that passes through 2 points. So here are your 2 points, right? Okay, remember, the important things that we need to use for this are the slope formula, which is the slope equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, the other important form that we need to use is the slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So these are the 2 important things we need, right? Okay, so remember, from what we learned the other day on Tuesday, the very first step, step 1, is to find the slope of the line given the points. So we're going to go through and do our steps. Okay, so step 1, find the slope of the line. So I'm going to label x1, y1, x2, y2. Make sure you've written down that ordered pair. Okay, and now we're going to plug it in to find our slope. So our slope is going to be -2 minus, because minus is from the formula, and then I have -5. So you should have a double negative right there. Okay, then x2 is 0 minus 4. Okay, this is making -2 plus 5. Down on the bottom just makes -4. What is -2 plus 5? 3. Okay, so I have 3 over -4, which is really just -3/4. Does that make sense? Okay, that's my slope. All right, now, I'm not done with the problem because the problem is asking me to write the equation of the line. So in order to write the equation of the line, I want to know the slope. I also want to know the y-intercept. I've just found the slope. Let's use a point, an x and a y, and use my slope that I found to find the y-intercept. That's step 2. Step 2 is solve for b. Okay, so what I'm going to do is pick a point. I would probably pick which one, the first or the second one? The second one, because it has smaller values, right? So I'm going to plug in this number for the y. Okay, so I'm going to get -2 equals m. What was my m value I just found? -3/4 times, what was my x value? 0 plus b. Now remember, now what I'm solving for is b. Okay, so what's -3/4 times 0? 0. What's 0 plus b? B. So b is just equal to -2. Essentially that goes away when I multiply by 0, right? So now, do I have the slope? Do I have the y-intercept? Yeah. So now step 3 is write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form, filling in for my final step these 2 things. Okay? So y equals, what is my m? -3/4 times x plus, what is my b? -2. So am I going to write plus -2? What will I write? Just -2. This is the final answer. Okay? All right, now, while I come around and check your homework, what I would like you guys to work on is I would like you guys to work on writing the equation of the line that passes through these 2 points here for problem number 2. Okay? So I would like you to work on that right now while I check your homework. Okay, guys, let's go over the second problem. All right? So on the second problem, you wanted to hopefully start out by labeling your x's and your y's, right? So x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, after you did that, step 1 was to find the slope. So we're going to plug them into the slope formula. -3 minus 2 divided by -3 minus 0. Okay, this is giving us -5 over -3. What's a negative divided by a negative? Okay, so your slope is positive 5/3. Now remember, that's not the final answer. That's just the slope. Okay, so now we need to go to step 2. Step 2 is finding B. So in order to find B, we're going to use the slope and use either one of these points. Which point is probably easier to work with? The first one. So I'm going to plug this in. Remember, I'm plugging it into y equals mx plus b. So y, which is 2, equals m, my slope that I found was 5/3, times x plus b. Now, this makes 0, right? So what is b equal to? 2 when I solve for b, right? Okay, so now that I have m and I have b, I'm going to write the final equation of my line in slope-intercept form. So, y equals, what is m? 5/3 times x. What is b? Plus or minus 2? Plus 2. Okay, how many of you raise your hand if you got that right? Okay, very good. Okay, next we're going to correct your homework. Okay, next you guys need to get out your math notebook. Okay, we're going to add to your table of contents. Okay, today's title is going to be Point Slope Form. This is going to go on page 27. So let me give you guys a moment to write that down. Okay, there's no handout for today, so we're just going to be writing directly into your notebook. Okay, does anyone still need more time updating their table of contents? Okay, I'm going to turn this and go to my page 27. It's the 26th today, right? Make sure you're dating your pages and putting a page number. Okay, does anyone need more time getting their page like titled or set up? Okay, everyone's good? Okay. So today we're going to go over point slope form. Point slope form is a different format of writing a linear equation. Okay? This is what point slope form looks like. The format of it is y minus y1 equals m. Remember, m is the slope times x minus x1. Now, when you have an equation and it's written in point slope form, bless you, okay, you're going to have these values as numbers. They're going to be filled in, okay? So all of these things won't be variables. They'll be actual numbers. But what they represent is the m represents what? Slope. Yeah, this one represents the slope, right? Now, these two together are representing a point, okay? And your point is a value of x and y that is located on the line. So this is your point, and your point is located on the line. And so the cool thing about point-slope form is it tells us a point that's on the line, and it tells us a slope. So what we can do is we can very easily look at an equation written in this form and identify a point that I can then graph, and then from that point use the slope, the rise over the run, to find some more points to draw my line. Okay? Now this point may or may not be the y-intercept. Okay? So that, like, when you guys look at an equation that's in slope-intercept form, you know the value of b is always the y-intercept, right? This value, this point, is only going to be the y-intercept if the x value is 0. Okay? If the x value is any number other than 0, it's not the y-intercept. It's just a random point that's on the line. Okay? So that's the difference between this format and slope-intercept form. When it's in slope-intercept form, we can see right away what the y-intercept is. This form, we can just see a random point on the line. Okay? So, what we're going to start out by doing is doing a little bit of graphing, okay, using this point-slope form. Okay? So, we're going to graph each line. Okay, and here's your first example. Okay, so in order to graph this line, what we want to look at is we want to identify the point and the slope. Okay, now, when I'm identifying the point, I'm not including the minus sign because that's part of the formula, right? So I'm just looking at the number part to identify my point, okay? So when I'm just looking at the numbers for my point, what is the x value of my point? What number is here? 2. Okay, what is the y value of my point? Now remember, don't include the subtraction sign, just look at the value. 5. Okay, so my point is 2, 5. Alright, now what is my slope? We'll look at the position where the slope is. It's the number in front of the parentheses, so what is my slope here? Yeah, so the slope is -1/2. Okay? Now, if I really think about this slope, what is this slope doing? Where is it telling me to move?
Down.
Yeah, down 1/2, right? So here's what we're going to do. Everyone go ahead and draw a graph right now. Try to be accurate in your graph that you're drawing. Okay, try to make the spacing as even as possible, because if you don't make the spacing even, then it comes out looking really funny. Okay. So, the way I'm going to graph using point-slope form is the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to graph this point. So let's find where this ordered pair is located. This ordered pair is located at 2, 5. So over 2, up 5. So that's right here, right? Can everyone plot that point on your graph? Can you guys do that? Okay. Are we okay with that? Do we understand how we got that location? Okay. All right. From this point, we're going to use this slope to plot some more points. So from this point, I'm going to go down 1/2. And I'm going to do that again. Down 1/2. And I could keep doing that, right, if I had a lot more room on my graph. Okay, but I think As long as you have at least 3 points, that's probably plenty of room. And you can get an accurate idea of what your graph is doing if you have at least 3 points. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a straight edge and we're going to connect. And so there's my line. Okay. Are there questions on how we did that graph? Are there questions on how we found the point? No. Okay. Now, I know in this one, it appeared like the values were -2 and -5, but remember, the minus sign is part of the formula, so you can't include that. So really, whatever it appears to be, if it looks like it's -2, it's really the opposite. What's the opposite of -2? Positive. What's the opposite of -5? Positive 5. Okay? So when you're looking for your point, you're going to see those minus signs, and you're going to want to say that the point is -2. It's not. It's the opposite. Okay? All right. So let's now take a look at a second example. Here's example 2. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I want to identify my point. Now remember in the last problem I said we were taking the opposite, right? So look at where your x and your y values are, okay? You're going to take the opposite of what these are, right? So what is the opposite of 1? -1. What is the opposite of 2? -2. So there's your point, okay? Now, for your slope, you take the same number. So what is our slope? What number is in front of the parentheses? 3. So your slope is +3. Now, I'm going to write the slope as a fraction to help me see where I need to move. So what's in the denominator of this slope? 1. So where is this slope telling me to go? Up 3 over 1. Very good. Okay. All right. So now, let's go ahead and draw a graph. Okay, try to make your spacing even. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do after we draw our graph is do what? Graph our point. Okay, so what's our point? -1, -2. So we're going to go left 1, down 2, and put a point there. That's our ordered pair, right? So this is where we're going to start. Okay. Now, from that point, what is my slope telling me to do?
Go up 3.
Up 1, 2, 3 over 1. And I'm going to do that again. Up 1, 2, 3 over 1. And maybe if I had room, I would do it again, but I'm out of room. Okay? All right, so now we're going to go ahead and connect. I want you guys on the homework tonight to try to get at least 2 or 3 points together to connect. Okay, and so there's the line. Okay, so we graphed our point, and then we use the slope to get a couple more points, and then we connected. Okay, are there questions on what we did? Okay, we're going to go ahead and turn. I'm going to turn, and we're going to do a couple other things with this point slope form. Okay. One of the things that we're going to do with this point slope form is we're going to write the equation of a line given some specific information. Okay, so go ahead and write that down. Okay, so point slope form is useful in that if you know enough about point slope form and you can remember the format, it makes it very easy to write the equation of the line. If you're given a point, you're given a slope. So if I'm given the information, like in example 3, that the slope is positive 3 and the point is negative 3 comma 2 is on the line, it's super easy for me to write the equation of my line. Okay? So, remember what point slope form looks like. I'm going to rewrite it here at the top. It looks like this. Right? Okay, and so what I'm going to fill in is into this general format, I'm going to fill in my slope, I'm going to fill in my x, I'm going to fill in my y. Okay? Now, remember when I pulled the information out to graph? What did I do with the x and the y values? I ended up using the same sign or the opposite sign? The opposite sign. So when I put them in, I'm going to also use the opposite sign. Okay? So, for my part with my y, I'm going to do y, and I'm going to do the opposite of this. So what's the opposite of 2?
Negative.
Equals m, what is m?
3.
3, times x, and what is the opposite of the x value? Positive, so plus 3. That's it. That's the equation of my line. Are there questions on how I wrote the equation of the line? Okay. Now, the reason why I use the opposite is because if I were to plug in 2 here, I already have in my formula a minus sign, right? So it becomes y minus a positive 2, right? And if I were to plug in the x value here, it becomes x minus negative 3. That creates a double negative, right? So what's a negative negative?
Positive.
Positive. That's why I end up having the opposite sign. Does that make sense? What I'm saying there? Okay. All right. So let's take a look at example 4. We'll have you guys try this one. The slope is 1/3. And the point 2, negative 5 is on the line. Okay, so take a minute to give that one a try. Remember, use your opposite x and y values when you're plugging in. Okay, share really quickly with your neighbors what you got. Okay, can we check if you guys got it right? Okay, so I'm going to start with y. And what's the opposite of the y value? Plus 5. So I'm going to write plus 5. Equals, what is the slope? 1/3 times x. What is the opposite of the x value? Minus 2. How many of you got that correct? Raise your hand. Okay, very good. Okay, is this part pretty easy? Okay, not too hard, right? Okay, now I want you to take a look at this example. Okay, so take a moment to write that one down. Okay, so hopefully you guys wrote that one down. Okay, what do you guys notice in this problem, the information they've given you? What information is missing that we need?
Slope.
The slope. They actually gave us 2 points. They didn't tell us the slope, right? The good thing is, do you guys know how to find the slope given 2 points? Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the slope using our slope formula. Okay, so remember, our slope formula is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Does that make sense what I did there? I just used this as my first x and y value and this one as my second x and y value, and I plugged them into the slope formula. Okay, so now what do we end up getting on the top? -6. What do we get on the bottom? 4. Is that slope reduced? No. What could I reduce it by? By 2. Okay, so what do I get when I reduce? Very good. -3/2. Okay, so there's my slope. Okay, so now, do I have a point and a slope? Yeah. So now can I write the equation of the line in point-slope form? Okay, so we're going to do y. What's the opposite of the y value? -2. Okay, equals m. What is m? -3/2 times x. And what is the opposite of x? -2. Okay. Now, are any of you wondering, Miss Miller, why do I have to use that point? Why can't I use the other point? Is anyone wondering that? You can use the other point, okay? So, there's 2 possible answers for this, okay? We could also have used this x and y value instead, right? Because I got to choose which one was x1 and y1. I could have called this one the first point, right? And so I could have chosen my equation to be y. What's the opposite of this? Plus 4 equals -3/2 times x. What's the opposite of this? -6. Now, you guys are looking at this and you're like, but Miss Miller, those are 2 different equations. They're not the same. They end up being the same if I distribute and solve for y. They will be exactly the same in the end. Okay? So they are 2 equivalent equations, even though right now they look different. If I were to distribute and then move stuff and solve for y, they would end up being exactly the same, okay? So it doesn't matter which point you use. You have options, 2 options of what your equation could look like, but they are equivalent, okay? All right, any questions on that? So just to review this last one, because we were given 2 points, our slope was missing, right? So what was the first thing we had to do in this last type of problem? What did we do first? Find the slope. After we found the slope, then we could plug it in with either one of those points, right? Okay. Are there questions on that? Okay.